BitSwap is the hottest new way to trade tokens. Crawling all the top decentralized exchanges, BitSwap will get you the very best price and value for your trades. BitSwap is changing the game. Try it now at bitswapdex.com.
Welcome to Rice TVX and the latest episode of the Rice Crypto Show. Today I am joined by Seth Estrada from MineYour.Biz. We're going to be talking about privacy, smartphones, and why it matters. Then we're going to be discussing the MineYour.Biz phone that is de-Googled. And if you're interested in purchasing one of these phones that we talk about on today's video, be sure to use the affiliate link below in the video description, as it is another way to support the channel. Before we get into it, make sure you visit ricetvx.com and sign up for my mailing list so you never miss an update or new Rice TVX content. Plus, you can find my social media links, contact information, get Rice TVX merch coming soon via the shop, and more. If this is your first time ever watching any of my videos, check out and explore my channels. Make sure you subscribe to Rice TVX and Rice TVX2, both can be found on YouTube. And hit the notification bell to get alerted to new videos. Also, you can follow me on Odyssey and Library, where I have my full catalog of videos plus extra content. And you can also find Rice TVX on BitChute. If you want to support Rice TVX and what I do directly, I have my PayPal, Cash App, plus my cryptocurrency addresses via my Cointree link below in the video description. You can also join my Patreon channel, where you will get early access to some of my videos, exclusive content, and more, with 4 different levels of membership, all offering something different. If you are looking to purchase and invest in precious metals, gold and silver are both good safe haven assets to hedge against the financial collapse we are experiencing. Check out Money Metals Exchange. I partnered up with them and you can get a free half ounce of silver. Visit moneymetals.com, be a first time buyer, purchase a minimum of $100, and use the promo code RICE. You get a free half ounce of silver, and it's another way to support the channel. I will include links down below for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything I talk about on today's show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me on today's show is no stranger to the show. This is Seth Estrada. He is the host of MineYour.Biz. If you're not subscribed to his YouTube channel, make sure you are subscribed. We're going to have links down below for his channel, for his website, and everything that we talk about on today's show. Seth, man, thanks for coming on today. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure visiting over here on Rice TVX.
Thank you, my friend. And it's always a pleasure having you. So because of this video, we're going to be talking about you offer a privacy related phone where they're decoupled from Google, and we'll get into all the details about that and why it's important to have privacy on phones. But because of that, I'm sure that some of my non-crypto viewers will be watching this video and they may not have seen previous videos with you. So do you mind kind of just telling people kind of in a brief statement about like what your channel is about, if people want to go and check out MineYour.Biz on YouTube and what they can expect to find?
Absolutely. It's kind of a grab bag of crypto content. We speak to people who are beginners in the space. We love talking to beginners and fielding beginner questions, but we do some pretty deep dives too. We do go pretty hard as far as technical content as well, where we talk about how to set certain things up. Today, we talked about how to overcome some of the limitations of, for example, the Polygon network that had been attacked, and how to still get your transactions pushed through, even if you were suffering from some of those problems. But it did require a little bit of a technical deep dive. So when you come over to the channel, just kind of expect it could be really extreme beginner content, or it could be really extreme kind of technical content, including crypto mining content, where we talk about making computers mine cryptocurrencies for you so you can earn a little more passively. That said, my background was a Fortune 50 trainer. I did tech training. It's going to sound like I'm making it up. You can check the receipts, right? I'm on LinkedIn. I'm a very public person, but worked for Microsoft, worked for Google, worked for Samsung Telecom USA, worked for Dell and AT&T. helped debut contactless payments on mobile for AT&T back in the day. Um, Actually, a couple of years after Bitcoin was invented, if you can believe it, here in the United States, we didn't have contactless payments on our phones yet. But that's kind of the background. Long story short, though, I feel like I did a lot of damage doing all those really corporate training pushes for these companies because I was promoting the use of consumer technology that we're coming to really discover now is basically just advanced spyware. It's just been designed to spy on us. So I'm trying to undo the damage that I did over a career that spanned years.
Yeah. That makes sense, man. And I definitely like the mining aspect of what you're doing with the channel because it seems like a lot of the channels that were focused on that have kind of gone away. There's not as many out there. And then the ones that are don't really have like exciting content. It's more of just kind of like seeing what people are doing with a little bit of speech involved. And so that's one of the reasons why I do like what you do with the mining and the variety that you talk about. So, and I always appreciate your opinion. You definitely have a really good way of looking at things and articulating your thoughts, which I
But I
appreciate.
definitely appreciate that. That's a high compliment coming from you because I know most people who are on Rice TVX already know, man. You keep it real with the variety and staying on point. So
Well, I
thanks.
appreciate you saying that, dude. I do. Thank you so much. So, again, we're gonna have links down below. We're gonna keep this episode kind of short and sweet. We're gonna be talking about this phone service, these phones that Seth is offering through his website, which you can find at MineYour.Biz, B-I-Z. Again, all this will be linked down below. And you can sign up for his mailing list and you can see other things on his website as well. But as you can see, your phone spies on you. So if you go under the shop, there is the how do you call this? Is it the MIB, the MyB? What is this?
So that's the acronym for the channel, Mind Your Biz. You can call it the Mind Your Biz phone. You can call it the
Okay.
My Bitcoin phone. You can call it the My Privacy phone. You can call it what you like. I just call it the Mind Your Biz phone though, and
Okay.
that was shorthand.
Mind Your Biz phone. Okay, so once you click on that, it'll take you over here to this link where it is a de-Googled device, and it's got a price here that people could check out. I'm going to have a link down below. It'll be a referral link so that if you do purchase one of these phones, it will be a way that you can support the channel and another way that you can support what Mind Your Biz is doing as well. So you got Pixels are the ones you offer, the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 4 XL, and then you have them new and renewed. So explain why it's important for us as individuals to want to have privacy on our phones.
Oh man, that's the $1 million question, right? Because I think that most people don't understand that if we were to take a dystopian, right, cautionary tale like say The Matrix, the way that it could be applied today is thinking that everything that's constructed around us is actually just constructed to sell us things. And our existence in this matrix is just giving it more feedback as to what we like so it can sell us more things.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're not private with our data, when we leak a bunch of metadata onto platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and worse, when we have phones that don't have restrictions on the access that our apps give to these applications or to the GPS data that we give to the network, or to some of the other parameters that are kind of addressed by the Mind Your Biz phone. When we don't restrict some of that data and that metadata that we give to these large tech companies, that just becomes a sort of a matrix of information that's used to market more to us.
Yeah.
So initially, most people think like, oh, well, I have nothing to hide. Sure, fine. You can keep thinking that if you want to. That's like people who say like, well, so-called freedom of speech could be dangerous. I don't have subversive opinions. Okay, well, you're telling me you don't have any differing opinions. Saying that you don't need privacy because you have nothing to hide is like saying you don't need freedom of speech because you have nothing interesting to say, right? Like
Exactly.
these are our rights. You can preserve them, but in the case of privacy, you have to work to preserve it. So,
100%.
yeah.
100%. And people don't realize how much data is being tracked and utilized from not just your smartphone, but your smart devices. So I'm sure people have experienced situations where they've talked about a product or something that they are considering purchasing or interested in. And then all of a sudden, you watch something on YouTube or you go on some various website and there is an advertisement of said subject that you were just talking about buying or purchasing. So these devices are always spying on you. And another example would be what happened with Facebook, where they've had the data leaks happen. And there's also been other data leaks that took place. But the phone situation, people don't realize, your location, all these different things. You're signed in. Usually you have a Google account. So you're signed into a Google account with your Google email, and that's attaching it to your GPS. So it's literally walking around with a tracking device that
Yeah.
monitors you. That
Yeah.
surveillance and tracking device.
Yeah, totally. So I don't know if any of your audience is familiar with the Tom Cruise movie, The Minority Report.
Mhm.
It's also a Colin Farrell movie. He doesn't last super long, but spoiler alert, he's not in the third act. Yeah, but in that film, there's this key plot point where his character is walking around in a commercial area, like an indoor mall, and everywhere that he goes, all of the stores are giving him ads, and they change because he's had this eye transplant, but it does this biometric scan of his eyes everywhere he goes from a distance. So it tracks his identity and it knows his preferences. And it's got this huge sort of aggregate metadata persona that's built up, kind of like a dossier or a file that's built up on him, and knows who he is and what he likes. They couldn't have guessed that Facebook would become a thing the way that it is now. But that movie should terrify people when you look back at it and you realize, oh, we just gave it away anyway. We
Mhm.
didn't need to have like retina scans everywhere. We didn't need to have little thumbprint monitors everywhere. We brought all of these surveillance equipment with us in our pockets. So like you're saying.
Well, and
Um,
something I've heard people say too is like especially when it comes to social media, when you're using something for free, like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, for example, when you're utilizing a free service, you're actually the product, and people don't realize that. And a lot of what you're talking about is big data. It's a term I've learned that I learned going to school for business administration that they use for the collection of all of this various information that they collect on us individually, where we have kind of you could think of it as a digital profile that has all of your likes and dislikes. And then in combination with things like facial recognition that applications like Facebook have started utilizing, where Instagram now being through Facebook, you start putting pictures up of people, it automatically is tagging the individuals in the picture for you. People just don't realize how much they're giving away. So those who
Well, and
want
Rice,
to have,
I'm sorry for the interruption, but
yeah.
most people also, most average consumers don't understand how incredibly dangerous that technology is. There's legal precedent around the world in several states here in the United States
Mhm.
that prohibits law enforcement from using the same algorithms that Facebook and Instagram have that you just mentioned. The LAPD, for example, is not supposed to, not on paper, they're not supposed to be able to use facial recognition. Why? Because of the chilling effect of having everybody in the public square be surveilled at all times and worry about police showing up at their home.
Yeah.
So if the police can't use this technology, why are we letting these companies that aren't accountable
Mm.
to anybody use it?
I mean, that's a good question, but as an example for what you're saying, there was a lawsuit that was taking place against YouTube and Google from Prager University, PragerU, and it was decided in February of 2020, I believe. Kind of got lost in the shuffle with everything that was going on in February of 2020, but it was around Christmas of 2019 that the crypto YouTube purge happened, and my channel was one of the channels that were affected. And then going and looking and seeing what took place on the second with this PragerU decision, what they ended up saying, and this just kind of got washed up with everything else going on, But a company like Google or YouTube are private corporations, and they're not held by the First Amendment. They're not liable to it, is what they say. Meanwhile, you can publicly invest in these entities. You can use their services without having accounts. I'm not really sure where the privacy aspect, like a private membership, private contract association is. They are a business in the United States, so things like the First Amendment should apply to them. But then you've got
Yeah.
the police who have more restrictions. So you can obviously see that these corporations have a big hand in the government's pockets. It would be just the best way to put it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
this wouldn't be taking place, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I see that there's nuance there as well. There are troubles, right? There's a problem with, for example, like the federal wiretapping laws that have to do with surveillance and being able to, for example, film police officers, like take video of police officers or anybody who's in the public sphere.
Right.
So, I mean, you can, as soon as you step foot outside of your home, or if you leave your window shade open and you undress in front of your window shade, you don't expect privacy, right? So there are these, like, there's this spectrum between privacy and confidentiality, for example, which is a different thing but related, versus the expectation of privacy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I get why some of these companies, they might not be held to quite the same standard, at least not legally, because if a third party obtains your image and likeness by having their camera out, they can kind of do what they want with it. You may not like it, but yeah, to then go sue YouTube because somebody else uploaded footage of you,
Right.
it may be wrongheaded. I get that there's a it's much more involved in that, but most people don't realize that they can reclaim at least some of their privacy on their own by just being more careful themselves around technology in their own home.
No, I
And that's,
agree.
yeah,
100%. I totally agree. So with a phone like this, it says here, no eyes. So no eyes on you, privacy, de-Googled device. And you're utilizing the Pixels, which is a Google phone.
yeah,
And I thought it was ironic that a Google phone was the easiest type of smartphone to decouple from Google and actually not utilize Google the way that the other phones do, extending the battery life, giving you more privacy. And then you're also telling me that with doing this, you can also have kind of a dummy Google account set up so that you can still download applications, still utilize the phone services, but not have it necessarily be attached to your identity. Am I understanding that correct?
yeah, yeah.
And then
That's absolutely right.
what
Uh,
is it about the Google Pixel 4 or Google phones that make it easy to decouple from Google?
So I'm glad you asked, because yeah, at first it seems like, okay, this is crazy. How could Google hardware help keep me safe from Google's prying eyes? Well, part of it is, so most people, when they look at, for example, computers, we'll use a desktop PC as an example versus, say, like some kind of an Apple laptop, right? People consider that an Apple laptop or an iPad or something, you can't really crack it open, you can't really make changes to it. It just runs the way it was designed to run from the factory, and if you don't like it, you get something else, but you can't really change it. A desktop PC, most people sort of understand that you can change some of the components out of it. You can upgrade the video processor if you're a video gamer. You can change the operating system too, from Windows to, say, Linux.
Mhm.
So you can do a lot of changes from both the hardware and the software side. With phones, it's kind of hit or miss. And the Pixel device, it has kind of the best blend between those. You can't change the hardware per se, other than, whatever, putting a case on it and a screen protector over it. But the software you can change, and you can change it from top to bottom. There are some very, very, very small exceptions. They're important, and we'll cover those in a minute. But as far as the operating system, Android, it can be fully replaced completely with Linux, even if you want, and not even Android.
Okay.
But what we've chosen to do with this phone is stick with a custom version of Android that fully strips out what's called the telemetry. That's a great vocabulary for any vocabulary word for anybody who's following along at home. But telemetry data, and this is all little bits of metadata, like including the Wi-Fi networks that you connect to, your current location, and the current cell tower that you're talking to. It cuts Google off from that data. They can no longer access it because it's not the full, we'll say the full fat version of Android, right? It's sort of more like, it's diet frozen yogurt instead of being, double churned full fat Android.
Right.
And so we replace it with a very customized version of Android that gets rid of Google's prying eyes from the operating system level. But only the Google Pixel allows you to do that and then lock the door behind those changes, so to speak. There are some other phones that could be used in a similar way, but they don't offer quite the same level of security hardening. And I made that change, Rice, because this is important to us as crypto people. If we ever carry any cryptocurrency on a phone, we want to know that if a third party just sees our phone over, say, in the hotel room and wants to pick it up and wants to try to mess with us, they can't easily access the contents of the phone, and definitely not our cryptocurrency, which for us, we view the same as money.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, like it'd be like most people don't think critically enough about that. Whatever,
I
like
view it more as
5,000
currency if you want to be technical, if you want to get in the argument of money versus currency, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I just mean to say like what you go to the store and pay with, right? Like most people, just to keep it as simple as possible, right? A medium of exchange, right? Like you wouldn't leave your wallet out, but we leave our phones out oftentimes in a way that can be a little insecure. And it's actually so much more dangerous based on how we interact with the world through these things. So why go with this model? Because Google, ironically, because they create the flagship design for all other Android phones, their Pixel line of phones has to be capable of being wiped of its software and then having third parties install these custom types of software so they can test out different things.
Yeah.
So this is something that Google, it's one of the few areas in which Google actually behaves very admirably and has stuck to their guns and said, okay, we're going to release this device that for third-party developers and even open source developers can always be used in a very flexible way. So there's nothing quite like it.
Okay. Now the F-Droid is the open source version of Android.
So F-Droid is kind of like the open source version of, say, the iTunes Store or the Google Play Store.
Okay.
Every one of the applications in it is open source, or if it's not, and generally speaking, doesn't use any centralized services or any Google services. And if it does, it's labeled to let you know precisely what you're getting yourself into.
And you can pretty much download anything that's on the Google Play Store?
Well, through F-Droid, no.
Okay.
Through an additional application that comes preloaded on the MineYour.Biz phone, yes, called the Aurora Store.
Aurora Store, okay. Oh, this is right here, Aurora Store. Yeah, so if people want to get information, like there is a lot of detailed information on MineYour.Biz/phone. And again, this will be linked down below, but pretty much it includes everything that's pre-installed, all the hardware specs. Why now you mentioned that there are other phones that you can use aside from the Google Pixels, but why did you choose to use the Google Pixel? What is the extra security that you're getting from that versus another device?
The extra security that the Pixel offers is something called a bootloader relock. So to use that example, how can I describe it? It's kind of
I have no clue what you're talking about. A bootloader,
Yeah.
bootloader relock.
So it's kind of like, think of it as like an extra padlock on the device that's in software, right? So if some third party, it's like, say some really, really enterprising dude, because one of our mutuals, Ken Bosak, he actually worked in this space before he got into crypto, in cell phone repair and in software. We've had a chat about this. He's a sharp guy too.
He is.
Like extremely, right? Like I say that only because it's remarkable, right? He's remarkably so. One of these off the charts genius level people who hides in plain sight and just graces us with his presence, right? Like he just probably needs to be walking on water somewhere else. But if he found your phone and he really felt like it, and it were the wrong type of phone, you could probably jack all your stuff by getting just a cable, plugging in, and then logging in through a computer.
Right.
These phones with that bootloader relock prevent that. That's why I like these. So
Okay.
instead of turning it off and then trying to power it on in a certain sequence and hack your way back in, it's much more difficult. Is it impossible? Probably not impossible, but it's very, very hard.
Let me ask you this, and this is one question that I haven't even asked you, even like, kind of doing like a non-video recording. What is preventing you or anybody else who's doing this? Because it's like a jailbreaking service, basically. It's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
That I used to get with iPhones back in the day.
Yeah.
What's preventing you or someone else from putting something on the device that would allow you to spy or take information from me?
It's a great question. Let me tell you how I would do that if I wanted to. So proof of having enough intelligence to do the exploit that you said. And then I mean, I can just say I don't want to do it. There's not enough money in it for me. that could be the bottom line right there. There's not enough incentive right now that I can see to behave in that way. And my face and my name is all over it. So there's reputation management too. But
can that be done?
Yeah, it could be done. It could be.
So somebody could be buying a phone like this from someone else, because there are other people and other company services that offer this, and they could be having malicious intent behind giving you a private device. I just want to make people aware that they always need to make sure they're doing their research. I wouldn't have you on the channel talking about this if I thought that you were doing something like we're discussing. But I think it's worth noting so that people realize that if you're just blindly purchasing something from somebody, it's like buying a ledger that's been opened.
Yeah. Yeah.
They say not to buy one unless you buy it directly from Ledger, because somebody could even open it, do something malicious, and shrink wrap it again, and you may not know the difference.
Yeah. So here's the way that I think the way that could be done. It would be either in the operating system, that would be a different version of it. And so if I were to take, for example, Calyx OS, which is created by a nonprofit foundation, that's the OS that I prefer using. Graphene OS is quite good as well. I don't offer it today. Who knows? Maybe in the future. But Calyx OS, if I were to go to their open source code base, which is on github.com, free website, anybody can go take a look at the code. If I were to go and take their code and pull it offline, nobody would know, but pull it offline and then put in my own custom spyware scripts inside of the operating system, I could do that. Anybody could do that. It's
not anybody, but somebody with the experience potentially could.
Yes. This is possible, is all I mean to say. So anybody with enough motivation could hire the right guy or gal, right? Or Russian hacker or whatever. And you could get this exploit done. So yeah, that's always a risk. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Man, I don't think so. I really don't.
Right.
So
yeah. No, I feel you. It's just, I want to be people. I want to make people aware of potential risks and dangers. That's all. But again, this is the reason why I wanted to bring you on and offer this, because I've told you I haven't personally obtained any of these phones from you, but I do plan on getting 2 devices. So people know that there's a Pixel 4 new inbox and a renewed one. So the new inbox is $649. The renewed one is $449. The Pixel XL, go back to new, so I can show everybody the prices. It's $815 basically, and then the renewed price for the Pixel 4 XL is $475. So as far as if somebody was to buy a brand new Pixel 4, what does that run roughly?
So a brand new Pixel 4, I haven't checked recently. Now that you mention it, I checked recently enough. It's going to run, I think, about a couple $100.
About the 350 $400 range.
Yeah, it's going to run a couple $100 less than my service.
Right.
But yeah, so
well, I want people to realize, because if they go and see these kind of services on other people that are offering, there's definitely they're charging a lot more than you're charging. As far as what they're offering. So I wanted people to be aware of the pricing. So there is an additional price for above the device because of the services that you're offering. But I think it's completely worth it if you're wanting to remain private and be able to maintain that privacy. I think
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, I think it's really a really cool deal, and I think it's I like the idea. I totally miss jailbreaking. So flashing or whatever people want to call it. I totally missed that. And I missed like taking the old iPhones, because I ended up learning how to do some of it myself.
Nice.
And that's when I was able to take like a what was their device called that was just an MP3 player that looked like the iPhones?
Oh, oh my gosh.
iPhone Touch?
The iPod Touch. They still have it, actually. They've got the latest generation processor from Apple is in a new version of that.
So it looks like the phone, but it's not a phone.
Yeah, that's, by the way, I mean.
And I was able to install a phone application on that and be able to use this non-phone device as a phone.
I mean, giving credit where it's due, the iPod Touch is a pretty decent privacy strategy for a lot of people who want to no fuss kind of like way to do that. You have to become very comfortable using Wi-Fi only apps. Right. And that's harder for most people to get into because you can't just take a normal phone call or make a normal phone call. So yeah, this really is a compromise. To be clear, every privacy measure that you make or that you take in your life, generally speaking, is a compromise if you want to live on the grid. If you want to be fully private, you got to buy a few acres out in the middle of literal nowhere. Make sure you don't have cellular devices or internet connections at all, and live the good life out free, right? Like you can do that. That's great. More power to you. But if you want to enjoy sort of the creature comforts of modern living, you got to make those compromises.
I get it, man. I get it. And I agree. So in addition to just everything that you talked about on the phone with the services that you offer, there's also some accessories and stuff that come with it. You want to go ahead and explain and highlight the accessories that people would get?
Yeah, these are material costs that are also part of the reason for that markup, and they do add privacy. The first one that I like, this is not always the case that comes with it, but it's just a bumper case. Most people, I mean, they don't think about it. I mean, how many people do you see walking around with a shattered phone?
A lot.
Half the people.
A lot. I mean, I have a phone. I keep it for nostalgic reasons. This is actually going to be because it's for my 2FA, but it got ran over in Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
And it was in 2019 at the World CryptoCon that I got ran over, but it still works great. And the camera didn't get affected. It's just, it's missing chips of glass out of it and everything. It's one of the reasons why I want to get a device from you.
Yeah, I would not have guessed that it survived a car.
But that's not the phone. That's not the phone that I use. That's just my 2FA, because I've learned to do 2FA on a separate device.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
because I've lost a phone, and that's not cool.
So like what you're talking about, these additional strategies, these are all part of becoming more private, and a single phone can't do what you just said. Having a separate device for 2FA, you can't do that if you only have one device. So there are so many behaviors you can add, but when it comes to your primary device, there's some accessories you can add too. So just making sure you don't smash your stuff up by having it in a case, if possible, is the first step. This is a privacy screen, and so if you don't look at it from first off, I'm not doing biometrics to unlock it. That's another thing.
But if the way that it works is if people aren't supposed to be able to see it unless they looked head on at it. Right. Exactly. When you start turning it to the side, it obscures people's views. So not only is it a private phone that gives you more privacy from Google and prying eyes, but it also gives you real physical privacy protection.
Yeah. So to the parents in your audience, which, for me, I'm at that phase where I've got like the kids are always, they're still interested in what's happening on the screen. Nieces, nephews, right? They're always like, hey, what's that? You wouldn't believe how much more effective this is than, tell them to like,
Oh
to
yeah,
push off.
especially if you were looking at something like you were looking at before we started the recording of the video.
Hey
People are
man,
like, "What are they
those are
talking
those are
about?"
sent
But
to
you'll
me by
never
my
know.
wife, bro. Don't make it. I mean, it was a little weird. Got a little kinky, but yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
fun
so
times.
yeah, right. But like, when you just get to about a 35-degree angle off there, this is also important for anybody who's into cryptocurrencies because you figure we have sensitive information with that QR code. Many ledgers, like I won't get too nerdy here, but Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're not private. So if you show your address here, it's like showing your home address or personally identifying information. You wouldn't want like a security camera at the bodega to pick up that information from you. You wouldn't, because then who knows who is going to look at that address and then figure out how much cryptocurrency you have. We need to be a lot more conscious of that. And that's
Right.
why I insisted on adding this to these phones, because we don't normally think about how important it is to restrict who has our cryptocurrency and our blockchain information. It's just as
100%.
important as having it. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean that's why I don't use public Wi-Fi, especially if I go to like a conference. Because I
smart.
know that there's going to be people preying upon those who do use public Wi-Fi, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens to people's devices. So, in
Yeah.
addition to the case and the tempered glass privacy screen, you've got the Faraday cage,
Yep.
the Faraday bag.
Yep. So it actually comes shipped in the Faraday bag so that whatever charge is in the phone is not being actively tracked by the FCC and I'm not actually breaking any laws here. This is perfectly legal, but it's not being tracked by the FCC or by any of the cellular carriers. So it arrives to you being totally untracked by wireless providers. And when you're not using the phone, again, this isn't always a step people like to take, but when you don't have to use the phone, if you slide this into a Faraday bag, then even the cellular carriers cannot track you, because that's the other side of the surveillance apparatus that was talked about by people like Edward Snowden and others. It's not just the big companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft. It's also, especially companies like Verizon and AT&T. They're all too happy to try to aggregate your location. And the only way you can turn these wireless radios off is to obscure them in a Faraday bag. That comes included. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I am totally. You're right. Thank you. I appreciate. I was trying to be polite, make sure no other noise is coming through.
You were
But you're
using a
also
Faraday bag for the mic. It was cool.
yeah, totally. Good one. It's coming with the charger, getting a cable, and it's going to be packaged to where nothing happens as far as in the shipping. And then, like you said, it's going to be inside the bag, so there won't be any kind of sort of monitoring of the device going to and from your location where you're shipping it to where it's going to arrive at.
Yep.
Now, since you mentioned Edward Snowden, and we don't have to get too deep into this, but what about, because he talks about taking the phone apart, getting rid of all these extra microphones that are on the phone. Um, what about those kind of situations? Does a Google Pixel 4 have those kind of extra microphones inside their devices?
Yeah, it does. So to speak to that as directly as possible, and if you don't mind, give us this like this big screen close up. I want to talk to your audience in a very personal way here, because
Okay.
this is pretty important, man.
I'll give you the big.
Oh, all
There you
right.
go.
Well, welcome, folks. It's called threat modeling. If you know, for example, you work in political journalism, or you're in a high risk situation where there could be the possibility that a third party is very motivated to bug your phone, this is not the right solution for you. You need to work with a security specialist personally. You really do. So this isn't for everybody, but the people that it's not for, you'll know because of the threat model that applies to you. Special operators, military personnel who run not, I won't say black ops, but who are in who are doing SF type work. This is not going to be the solution that you need. You have protocols for that. and people who work in very, very data sensitive or security sensitive fields, you have protocols for that. This is for people who want to take a step towards much increased privacy without having to sacrifice creature comforts. But if you think that your life is at risk, do not buy this phone. Let me be the first to say that.
Right.
This is not the right choice for you if you think your life is on the line.
And I'm glad that we brought that up because, I want to be as honest and upfront about what this phone is so that people don't have different expectations going into a purchase. Because I don't try to recommend a lot of the products, and this is something that, like you said, if you're dealing with a life or death situation or a high security situation, your life is at risk. You're definitely not going to want to use a device like this. You're going to want to be in hiding, and you're not going to want to be able to be tracked in any way. And there are devices that you can get. There are satellite phones and things to that effect, encrypted devices, but they're pretty expensive. I know they're not very cheap at all. So, I mean, and this is definitely affordable. This is, just a couple $100 more than you would be paying for the actual device. Plus, you get the case, the privacy tempered glass. You get the Faraday bag and the charger and all the other stuff included. So I think it's well worth it. And otherwise, I wouldn't be recommending it to people. The last thing I want to mention is that you do accept cryptocurrency in addition to the normal payment methods.
Yes, I do. So let me see. I'm trying to think of how we have that structured right now. We are using a pass-through payment portal, and the store is hosted on Shopify. In case people are wondering, as far as the security of the checkout, but I do also accept private orders if people just email the contact info on the site. Again, threat modeling. If you know that your threat model is slightly more sensitive and such that you don't want to use, say, a shopping cart on Shopify, because there are going to be some people for whom that overlap is right. They're not in a life or death situation, but they know that, for example, the metadata trail that's left behind would prevent them from using Shopify. Just reach out on that email address. What I don't have listed publicly is just a PGP key with a separate address. It is a Proton Mail address, but I did create aftermarket PGP keys for my Proton Mail address because you can do that. So most people don't know it's a deep tool.
Cool. Well, I mean, I'm glad we did. I mean, this video ended up being a little bit longer than I was anticipating, but it's good because I'm glad that we did this deeper dive into some things that I'm sure people, had we not went down this road, people probably would have been commenting, asking some of these questions, especially if people are doing their homework and have a clearer understanding of why you would want to have privacy on phones and have been looking into different options. So you have anything? Let's go ahead.
Oh, just going to say, on that note, for some people, part of their privacy model is that they just want to have a separate phone that isn't purchased on their credit card. That's part of the reason that we accept cryptocurrency payments, and part of the reason that it's important to buy through a broker as opposed to, say, eBay or Amazon or other marketplaces that would record your purchases.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's also another big thing that this service fulfills for some people is financial privacy.
True that, man. I appreciate you adding that. So again, we'll have links down below for MineYour.Biz, and it would be /phone if you just want to go directly to the store to see the phone, or if you just want to go to his website, MineYour.Biz. And then I do encourage you to make sure that you are checking out Seth's YouTube channel if you are not already subscribed. Again, it's going to be linked down below. Before we do wrap up, my friend, I do appreciate your time. You got anything you want to add before we do close today's video?
Yeah. Hey, to Rice's audience, if you're interested in looking at the phone, why wouldn't you just click on the link that he has as an affiliate? You support his channel too by doing that. It's going to bring you directly to the same thing, and it is an affiliate structure that I set up. It's privately run, so it's not like there are third parties that are prying or making it weird.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about I keep forgetting about the affiliate code, but yes, I do. I would definitely encourage people to, because it's not going to change your pricing or anything. It would just be another way that you would support Rice TVX, and that would be greatly appreciated. So make sure you're using that referral link down below in the video description. And then what I will do, Seth, is when I record an intro to this, I'll just be specific to make sure that you're using the link down below or wherever in the video description, wherever that's at on the device you're watching. So again, man, I really appreciate it. If you can just bear with me, I'll close up and stop recording.
Sure, I can do a different outro then if you're gonna do some editing.
I wasn't really going to edit the video itself. I was just going to add. I call it editing, but it's more just putting together a bunch of videos to make it look like a more professional video. That's all.
It's kind of editing.
yeah. It's just I really despise, especially for my work ethic. I really despise having to edit out anything during the interview. Like once I start and once I end, I like to leave it, unless for some reason your wife or your kid came in screaming or something, and we need to cut that part out. Or obviously, if you got disconnected and reconnected, that would be the only reason that I do that. Because otherwise, I try to keep it very organic and natural, and don't want people thinking that I'm taking something away from the conversation.
Got it.
If that makes any sense. So.
No, it totally does. I'm terrible at editing. I edit probably way too much.
You do a lot. You do. That's why I use StreamYard now, because it makes things so much easier. The way that I was able to go through and do a screen share, change up the look of where we're positioned and stuff on screen. It adds a lot more elements. So all I got to do is just literally just take this and it's good to go. Makes it a lot easier. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, man. One of these days, I don't know. I'm too addicted to the stupid hard work nerd stuff, Linux and all that crap.
I still got some years on you, man, but wait till you're like kicking 46 and tell me how you feeling then.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I told you I'm 42 this year, and it hasn't gone away yet.
I mean, I felt the same way just a couple years ago. I'm just telling it starts to change, and when it changes, it does fairly quick. At least it did for me. So we'll see, man. I'm sure we'll be friends, and I'll remind you of this conversation in the future.
Dude, right? I'll be like, yeah, screw that phone. I'm just using iPhones and all the Apple stuff now. Spy on me.
All right, dude. Well, I appreciate it again. I'm going to have links down below for everything we talked about. If you're interested in the MineYour.Biz phone or the My Bitcoin phone or the privacy phone, whatever you like to call it, use my referral link down below in the video description and support the channel. If this is your first time ever watching any of my videos, check out and explore my channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll leave you with this. Be the change, practice change. If you are interested in purchasing the MineYour.Biz privacy phone, be sure to use my affiliate link in the video description. It's another way to support Rice TVX.